Morning, YouTube. This morning I've been having brake problems over a period of time of them dragging. So I'm going to do a little bit of shade tree mechanic and take my brakes apart and clean them up a little bit. Next step is you want to jack up the truck. I use a bottle jack from Harbor Freight, and since we're shade tree, I use some blocks of wood for jack stands. And you also want to chock your wheel so your truck doesn't roll away on you when you're working on it. I made a custom block out of wood, and then I got a piece of rope to lay out to remind me it's there. I have the luxury of an electric 1/2-inch impact wrench that I picked up at Harbor Freight, which is my favorite shade tree mechanic tool supply. And this will get the wheel right off in no time. Alright, we'll pop the wheel right off. And now we're down to the brakes. This is what I like about my 1-ton dually. The massive hubs, the massive brake calipers. They're just huge. That way when we're going down the mountains, be able to stop the rig without any problem. So this is my caliper, and I'm going to be taking off 2 bolts right here. This bolt and this bolt down here, and then this whole caliper assembly is going to come off, and I'm going to clean it up. Alright, this is my brake bleed screw right here. And I'll attach a piece of tubing to it into a jar to catch all the brake fluid, and that will relieve the pressure so I can pry the caliper apart. And I have my handy dandy pry bar from Harbor Freight again, and you want to gently pry the caliper away from the rotor. And with the tube and bleeding the pressure out of the bleed screw, it makes it a lot easier to get the caliper off. Alright, I got my calipers off, and now what I'm going to do here, I got some C-clamps, and I just tighten up the C-clamps, which is going to push in the caliper here. I have a dual caliper set up, so that will push those back in so I can put the brakes back together. And I believe my problem for dragging is right in here, right where the brake pads are. They build up a little rust and dirt and corrosion, which doesn't allow them to slide in and out. So that's where I'm going to pull it apart and clean it up here, and hopefully take care of my brake dragging problem. Alright, got my brake pads off, and I believe my problem is right here. This is supposed to be shiny stainless steel, and the rust from the pads and the dirt and grime builds up here and doesn't allow the pads to slide. And that's end of the pad where it slides on there, which is all rusty, which I'm going to clean that up. Pad's got about 40,000 miles on them, and they're still in very good shape. So I'm going to get that cleaned back up, and we'll get her back together. Alright, the wire brush on a drill does good for cleaning up the rust off the end of the brake pads. Right, these are the little stainless steel slides that the brake shoes ride on, and they should be shiny metal. So I'm going to clean those up. Alright, I got that all cleaned up, nice and shiny. That's where the brake pad comes in, and it will slide right in there. So that needs to be cleaned so it slides back and forth with the brake pad in there. Alright, we got it all back together. Got everything all cleaned up here. There's some pins right here. They were free. They went back in and out. Got my bolts back in and tight and torqued down. And now what I'm going to do is bleed the brakes. If you put this tube on, and if you're by yourself, you just run it into a jar, and I'll go in there and pump the brakes until there's no air in the hose, and then the brakes will be bled. That's how you do it by yourself when you don't have a helper. Got the brakes all bled, and there's a little dust cap. Going to put on the brake bleeder valve. Got everything tightened up, and now what I'm going to do is take care of some of this minor surface rust I'm getting up under here. And with that, I just from Walmart, I get some 99-cent black spray paint, and I just spray the undercarriage with it, and I found that has worked pretty good. Need to make sure and top off your brake fluid. Most vehicles use .3 brake fluid. You got to read on your cover to see what it says. .3 is the most common brake fluid. And since I'm a certified shade tree mechanic, I go by Walmart and I use the SuperTech brand. I use all the brake fluids and oils and lubricants of SuperTech. Been doing that for many years, and they've worked out great for me. One little trick to be getting heavy tires on, I'm only about 150 pounds, so these tires are heavy, is take a crowbar and put it on the tire, and you can use the crowbar for leverage to get the tire up and on. Used to drive semis, and those tires can weigh 200-300 pounds in my younger days, and I used to have to muscle those up there. So this one here is a piece of cake. I'll also put a little bit of wheel bearing grease on my studs. That way they don't rust up and seize on. But the professionals say don't put any oil or grease on your studs. But that's what I've been doing ever since I've been driving for the last 40 years, and with boat trailers and stuff. I've never had a lug nut frozen or stuck on, so it's always worked for me. But I'm a certified shade tree mechanic, and all the professionals say don't do it. Any books you read say don't do it. But for me, it's been working 40 years great, and I've never had a frozen lug nut. What I'll do, I'll tighten down all my lug nuts by hand. That way, if I'm ever broken down on the side of the interstate, I won't be able to get them off. So if I can use my strength to put them on, I snug them up about as tight as I can get them. That way, I can get them off when I need to 6 months down the road if I'm broke down on the side of the interstate. I got the lug nuts all tightened down, and what I'll do, I'll leave my hubcap off, and then in couple weeks I'll come back and recheck them to make sure they're tight. While you got your truck jacked up, you can also check your trailer tires. It's a good time to see if they're out of round. You just put a block of wood about 1/4 inch away from the tire, and then you spin the tire and see if the gap stays the same all the way around. That way you can see if you have any bubbles in your tires. On my trailer I had China bombs on there, and every one of them was 1/2 inch out of round. But my truck tire looks very good. Okay, we're going to go for a test ride. Thank you for watching the RV Dog channel. Thumbs up, subscribe, and ring that bell. Bella's ready to go. And Buddy's ready to go too. Buddy gets a whole back seat back there. Alright, thank you again for watching the RV Dog channel.